All right, so we're going to be trying something new this year. We thought it would be good to try a video to do our annual meeting and explain the things that happened over the last year and also what's happening this year. Having two campuses creates somewhat of a challenge on how do we communicate these things. So what we would ask of you is once you watch this, let us know what you thought, how we could improve it, or even if it's a good idea. But it is what we're going to do this year. So with that, we want to look backwards at 2018 and just talk about what it is that we experienced, because it's a lot of things that our church went through. Yeah. Why don't you start us?
So we'll just start with local work. Obviously, the biggest thing was that we launched a plant.
We did.
If you didn't know. Yeah, launched a plant. So for those of you who, you might not know the history, the background to this, I can just quickly give it to you. This was an idea that we've had for a while. And so end of 2017, we made a decision at leadership retreat, let's just go for it in 2018. And so we set a date of April 1st as a launch date. And so we got moving right away in the beginning of January. And so really the plant started as a Bible study at Justin and Missy Rader's house up in the north. We were meeting for a year.
I'm no good with time.
Yeah, I don't remember.
We were there a significant amount of time, though.
Yeah. And we were meeting on Wednesday nights, and it started out, we kind of hijacked that small group that was meeting up there and invited some neighbors and stuff. So we met there for a good year and, then ultimately decided to launch in 2018. And so at that launch, then we had to develop right away, starting in January, a core team of ministry leaders, a lot of help from Kenosha people that had massive input and did a lot of heavy lifting as well. But we established, ministry teams for, things like Sunday school, worship, setup, takedown, infrastructure, greeting, all those things. We created literature, banner designs. The biggest one was finding a location. The biggest struggle with that was we couldn't do anything until we found a location. And so, try to mobilize the church there to start praying for a location. We found an excellent one, obviously, at the theater. And so that was the biggest thing. A lot of hours right there between January through, really April. So,
and in almost every way, we were completely winging it.
Yeah, building the plane as it was taking off. As we described it. Yeah.
But it was an exciting time. But it also presented a lot of challenges. One of the biggest ones for us was to figure out how are we going to work out a preaching schedule, because you were coming on full time, and up to that point you were preaching once a month, right?
Yeah.
The fourth. Yeah. So all of a sudden what we decided was a completely different preaching schedule, which is what we're doing now. Matt and I trade off on weeks, and then we also are having Grayson do some preaching as well as Bruce. And so it opened up some opportunities for us, but also some challenges. And how? No.
Well, we found that there was a lot of. We wondered if it was going to create whiplash, the 2 weeks trading off, things like that. And we've found that it's actually brought a nice diversity of the Bible to the people.
Yeah, I was really unsure. I wasn't certain how well the people are going to respond on, having two different people doing it, 2 different weeks. And I personally wasn't comfortable with us sharing a book of the Bible because our preaching styles are so different. And so, yet providentially, it really worked out well.
Yeah.
So at least from what I can see, and as a result, over 2018, we've covered a lot of material biblically. I finished Revelation. You did
Ecclesiastes.
Right, Ecclesiastes, which is a strange book, and not one that a lot of people went through in their life, and so that was a great one. Now you're going through Luke, and you're going to be there for a while.
10 years.
I'm dealing with just the biblical worldview by going through Genesis chapters 1 through 11. But then you add to that, Bruce is doing James. Grayson took us through all of the small books in the New Testament. So again, people had a chance to hear maybe their first and only sermon on something like 3 John. And all of that, I think, is really good for the church because they're getting a broad sweep of the Bible rather than simply one person. In other words, like myself, where I spent 7 years in the book of Romans. So it's been good, but we've also seen some growth.
Yeah.
How have you seen that growth?
Yeah. So just to give a couple comments, on the North Campus in particular, I don't think anybody's discouraged, but you don't know what expectations are
Sure.
going into it. And so, with any church plant, I think there's like the tacit hope that you'll launch and then there'll just be a massive inpouring of people, and which isn't the normative reality of any church plants. And we knew that.
But it is the one that you always hear about.
Right. Yeah.
And so you're right.
Yeah. And so, I think I had said back in January before we had launched that, if we get even 2 or 3 families by December, I would be thrilled. And so we haven't had that, but we haven't had it in sort of the family unit, but we've had it in terms of just different people coming. And so just to give some updates, we planned it out with about 48, 49 people, which includes children. About half of those are children. But right now, if everyone's there, we're running 60, 65 people. So I just had to submit my numbers from NAM for the quarterly reporting. And that means that in 8 months, so we've been doing this since April 1st, but in 8 months, we've grown 20%. 20%. And so if you put it in that perspective, that's huge for a church plant. That's a solid number.
And I think it's important for everyone to know that because, again, if you're watching from the Kenosha campus or you're part of the Milwaukee campus, it's easy for you to have your own unspoken expectations. But we're actually doing quite well. Yeah. And, the leadership, the elders are certainly pleased with it. But even within the world of church planting, this is not something we should be worried about. We're good, very healthy and right where we should be. So
yeah,
that was encouraging though to find out.
Yeah, for sure. What are some other things that happen?
One of the things I really like, because for so many years we had such a poor one, was the complete redesign of the website. It's something that is outward facing. It's something that we're already discovering. People who are coming to our church, they have spent significant amount of time on that website, checking us out, finding out what we believe, how we basically worship, listening to sermons. So we were really happy with that. We updated our statement of faith, and that's opened up the ability for people to better understand the uniqueness of what Missio Dei is.
And that's a phenomenal statement of faith.
Well, that's because you wrote that. It's not as good as mine, but we went with yours.
But it's also, I think you mentioned that it's a dual campus website.
Well, yeah.
Did you say that?
No, I didn't.
Oh.
I should have. Because it was my idea.
Yeah.
Well, actually, it was some other church's idea, and I shamelessly ripped off their website, but
sure,
it's okay.
You
we were allowed to. It wasn't copywritten.
Yeah.
Another thing that was huge for me, and I think for the church, was our celebration service, because that was an opportunity for both the campuses to come together and just celebrate the fact of what God is doing, not on one campus or the other, but as a whole church. And so that was exciting to see everyone get together and so many faces, and also watching the people who had gone up to your campus. They left good friends. And it was fun to watch them come back and watch their kids play together, watch them reconnect. Not to mention we had a lot of great opportunities to give thanks to God in what we were seeing in that picnic. You and I were able to do dual baptisms, which we had never done before. So we baptized 14 different people. That was great, from both campuses again. We brought in a little over 20 new members. And again, they were brought in as one church, so everyone could rejoice in seeing them come together. But let's all agree, what was the high point of that?
Clearly, it was the smoking of a pig.
Yeah, that smoked pig was good.
Yeah.
Summer was.
Yeah, unfortunately, not everyone got it.
Sure.
We learned that the one thing we need to do is next time have more pig.
More pig.
So we're going to have more pig.
Yeah.
But we're also expecting more people. So,
Right.
but that was great. We didn't hear a single complaint, a concern. It was just a time of tremendous music, a lot of wonderful singing. Many unbelievers were there, and they were able to hear through song, through the baptism, and through just the spoken word, the gospel. I don't know how many times.
Yeah.
So,
and now we have people now at our church as a result of that.
Yeah.
Which is really neat.
It was a high point, at least for me. It was a dream that I've had for so many years, and it was realized. So for me, it did my heart good. But we've also added a few other things in 2018, and all of this is still local work.
Right, yeah. So, one of the things that we've done is started a podcast called, it was called Ask the Mats for a while, but we switched it this year. We're rolling out something called Faith and Fable, which is just a time where we can talk about things on our mind and on our heart and be able to just chat about them in a casual way, but bring another element of teaching and perspective into certain things with that.
And one thing that's good about that is because I've not been able to do a Bible study in quite a while, just because of how busy things are, it does afford a way for us to communicate things of doctrine to the whole church. If they're wondering, they can log in, download, and listen. Like we're going to be doing ones on decision making. We're going to be dealing with social justice coming up. Those are major issues, and they're things that people have questions about. So it also is accomplishing part of our passion, which is to edify or to build up the saints.
Yeah, and part of the strategy behind that is, as you were saying, to give the people a tool that they can use to point people to if they have questions on a particular topic. And so with that also came that I can't really speak too well to because I'm not really in the know on a lot, but a new social media strategy, which is being headed up by Mark, Lena, Kendall, and they're doing a phenomenal job. But again, they're doing it for the purpose of giving the people of the church tools, because we live in this kind of world now where social media is the way that you relate. So that's good. That's something new and exciting. I think they're doing a really nice job. I don't think there's anyone who's not seen that at our church.
No, and and I think that people don't really realize how far-reaching it is, because everything that they see or hear has got their fingerprints on it.
Yeah.
Mark, Lena, Kendall, and the people that come alongside them and assist them, they're all behind all of that. So every time they watch a video, every time they listen to anything that we're doing, it's all because of that. But we're also cranking out the Facebook, Instagram, the website.
This
Video. So it's kind of hard for me in the sense it's a new venture. It's not an area I ventured into a lot prior. So it's kind of fun to be stretched and think about different venues of how do we communicate to people. But it also, not only is it inward, but it's outward looking. So it's capturing both sides of that whole spectrum of trying to reach people. Yeah. And then we did something also last year that we had not done in a long, long time. And that is that the Tetricks and the Randalls are heading up the Missio Dei Fellowship Youth. And so they're starting to get the youth together, and they're treating it like a small group. And so they're discussing the sermon, but they're also doing the things that young people enjoy to do. And that's being well attended, and it seems to be being received well by the young people. So I found myself greatly encouraged by that and intrigued with what that will bring.
Yeah, for sure.
In the future, because it's not something I have my fingers in at all, and yet I'm so thankful for their willingness to serve in that way.
And it's a dual campus deal.
Yeah.
So we have definitely people from Milwaukee also attending that. So,
and then, you want?
Yeah, this year, also what was rolled out, which was very exciting to see, is a new women's kind of Bible study, this thing called Resolve, where they're all reading through the Bible together in 1 year. And that thing's been interesting because there's a really good amount of people doing that, even people not part of our church. And so there's just other just kind of fringe people who are finding in some way community with that. And so the women are excited about it. It's fun to see those live videos that come out on Facebook, as they're talking about struggles, encouragements, things they're learning, things they have questions on. And so it's just a good thing. And
it is. And I, as a person who by nature is a loner, it's been helpful for me because it's showing me again the value of doing things together, just encouraging each other, pulling each other along. I mean, maybe a week ago, people were just sharing where they were struggling, if they were caught up or behind, and anyone who was behind, everyone got behind them and encouraged them. There was no criticism or anything. I was just touched by the care for each other, and encouraged that some of these ladies might, for the first time, finish the Bible, and it's something that they wanted to do, but they've never done it. So again, that was an idea of Esme Randall, and I'm so thankful for it, because anything that gets people in the Bible, obviously,
right.
we're for.
Yeah.
But we also made some changes, and some of those were things that affected you.
Yeah. Yeah, so we just a couple of updates. The first one is, and we announced all this, but we this past year stepped away from CareNet, which is a ministry that, as a church, we've been involved with for a long, long time, and that obviously I was involved with, being on staff for a while. And so we stepped away from there for various reasons. We also stepped away from the LBA,
Lakeland Baptist
Association, which is the Southern Baptist Association in southeastern Wisconsin. Up around Milwaukee especially. And so we stepped away from that. I think we were given, an X amount of budget dollars to that each year to support it. And
1% of our budget was going to that. And for both of them, the reasons, we dealt with the reasons already to the church, but in the broadest sense, both of them were no longer doing either what they were supposed to be doing, or they had began to emphasize things that we were not wanting to invest the money that the people were giving in. And so ultimately, they were both hard decisions, but they were ones that we ultimately said it's wiser and more proper for us to step away than to become frustrated or create trouble. Yeah. So those are significant changes, though a lot of people may not notice them because they were not as closely involved as like you being on staff.
Right. So that was local. That was all local work this past year. How about we talk about, mission work or more global stuff? What did we do this past year?
Well, and so most of people should know, obviously, that we're becoming heavily invested with Ethiopia. We made 3 trips last year, and one of those was kind of cool because I could take my wife. And it was a fact finding on making certain that it was something that we could do. And then we've gone twice, you and I, and it's specifically with the idea of training pastors. They don't have any schooling, a lot of them. Most of them are very, very poor pastors. Nobody's ever taught them how to study the Bible, why or how to preach. And so that's what we have modules that we've developed and had translated, and then we go there and teach them. And the whole idea is at the end of 3 modules of training, it's not like a seminary degree, but they at least have been equipped with practical ways that they can deal with the text instead of coming up with whatever the Spirit leads them on late Saturday night, and then they butcher a text. So we're excited. It's opening up avenues that we didn't anticipate, but it also is expensive. Mm-hmm. And what has been humbling for me is how generous the church has been in this, because I think not everyone grasps the fact that everything we're doing in Ethiopia is completely 100% funded by Missio through our missions fund. And so that's flying us out there. That's getting the translators, the translation work. We literally transport and feed 30 pastors plus other people that are connected to it during that week that we're teaching them. I mean, all of that is being done because people are faithfully given to the church. So very, very humbling and also encouraging to see the generosity of the people.
Yeah. And we would say if you don't listen to the podcast, hop onto the podcast and you can get some details about those trips and everything that's going on there, and also an explanation as to some of the potential that we have there. And so we've already done all that before, but just make sure to listen to those. Also, just a few other things, things we're encouraged by in terms of missions, that the church just in an incredible way rose up to give a lot of support to key mission events as a church. So just to list some action packs this year, we raised $10,644. I think that was
350 packs.
Yeah, that's incredible. That's
For
that's a
our
record.
little church, yeah.
Yeah. Lottie Moon Christmas offering, which goes toward international missions. This year we raised 5,342. Annie Armstrong, which we do in the Easter, that goes toward North American missions. So that's helping fund even what we're doing up in the North. We're supported in part by that. For that, this year we raised $9,154. That's a good number. And then Compassion Kids. This is one that we talked about how we like, $313.
Yeah, that's just the children. In fact, I was down last Sunday and I watching the kids go into the Sunday school class, and I grinned as I watched child after child walk up to a little box and drop a few coins in there. I'm like, and that's all going to help in a very practical way and a wonderful way some kids in some very tough situations. So it just drove home. That $313 doesn't look like much until you realize that's coming from just the kids,
right?
And their desire to give.
Yeah.
But our total amount of missions giving as a church was over $66,000.
That's crazy.
I'm like, what?
Yeah.
Again, I say that only to give praise to the people who are watching this, who are giving and being faithful in that, because that's such a generous act and a necessary act. And we want to thank you.
Yeah.
Well, with that, what we're going to do is we're going to transition to our budget, and we're going to have Karen. You're going to listen to her as she explains the budget for 2019, and then we'll come back and we're going to talk about the next or this year, 2019.
Hello, I'm Karen Fantel, treasurer here at Missio Dei Fellowship. It is once again my pleasure to bring you the financial year-end wrap-up. 2018 was a year that started out with great anticipation and excitement about the possibility of starting our second campus in Milwaukee. Financially, there were many unknowns headed into the year, such as where will the new campus be located? What equipment will we need to purchase to make the location a church setting, both for preaching and worship? As Pastor Matt Henry has mentioned several times during the budget process over the years, we just need to trust that the Lord will provide for our financial needs and take a leap of faith. So in the early part of the year, a committee for the new campus came up with an additional budget plan. We ended up revising our initial 2018 budget numbers as questions began to be answered and new revenues and expenditures came into view. To be clear, the numbers you are seeing are totals for both campuses combined. We are one church with two locations, so the numbers are presented for you in total. Our general fund, which contains all of the operating activity for both campuses, finished the year exceeding expectations in annual giving by nearly $50,000. Praise God for the faithful giving of the people of this church. Total revenues for the year of 2018 came in at $423,511. This number includes contributions and other sources of revenue, less elder-designated funds to missions. In addition to contributions, we also received funding from the North American Missions Board of $8,500 to aid in the opening of the new campus, and also $12,500 to assist in the funding of Pastor Matt Miller's salary. As a result, Pastor Miller was able to be hired as a full-time pastor in March. Also included in the inflows for the general fund was $5,000 of funds from savings that were needed to meet cash flow needs early in the year. On the expenditure side, we finished slightly over our budget projections. Total expenditures were $372,009. Within this number are the expenditures for the startup and running of the Milwaukee campus, which totaled approximately $16,000. This amount does not include rental costs for the Milwaukee campus. During 2018, we also had a new website designed and launched, as well as a promotional video created for the website and Facebook. There were no major building projects in Kenosha for 2018 as we concentrated on the needs of the Milwaukee campus. However, the Resource Center did get a fresh new look, and we started a waterproofing project for the gymnasium walls in late December. All told, we finished 2018 with a surplus of $51,500 in the general fund. Financially, we finished the year in a very stable position. We were able to add to our savings balance due to the surplus and currently have a balance in general fund savings of $106,000. For the missions fund, we finished the year with revenues exceeding expectations for 2018. Total revenues were $76,958. This amount includes elder-designated funds from contributions, your contributions to the Lottie Moon, Annie Armstrong offerings, and also action packs, along with your direct gifts to the missions fund. In expenditures, during our initial budget process, we decided to include the second campus rent in the missions fund for 2018 because of the missional nature of starting the new campus, and also because the missions fund was better able to absorb these costs, which amounted to $25,450 for the year. Also funded were 2 teaching trips by our pastors to Ethiopia, and we gave to Emmanuela's Children Treasuring Christ in Cameroon and Compassion International Ministries. We ended the year with an anticipated deficit in the missions fund in the amount of $10,546. This deficit was funded with savings from previous year's accumulated surpluses. On to 2019. In the general fund, we have contributions projected at $390,412. This is a 5% increase over last year's budgeted total. We will also continue to receive funding from the North American Missions Board toward Pastor Miller's salary in the amount of $16,500. No surplus funds from savings are anticipated to be needed at this time. Total revenues, then, are projected at $379,583. Because we have a balanced budget, we also anticipate total expenditures of the same amount for 2019. We have decided to fund the rental payments for the Milwaukee campus out of the general fund this year and anticipate those to be approximately $30,000. No other major expenditures should be needed for Milwaukee this year. From a building maintenance standpoint, Lord willing, the only major expenditures for the Kenosha campus will be to complete the waterproofing and gym renovations, estimated at $7,000, and to make repairs to the parking lot this summer for approximately $6,000. All other building costs, personnel, office, and ministry-related expenditures are expected to remain stable when compared to last year. Our 2019 outlook for the Missions Fund again includes funding for Children Treasuring Christ Cameroon, Compassion International, and 3 missions trips for our pastors. Funding for all of our missional endeavors will once again come through elder-designated funds from contributions and from direct contributions made by you. Total projected revenues of $74,329 are expected to more than cover forecast expenditures of $62,908, leaving a projected surplus in the missions fund of approximately $11,000 for the current year. In wrapping up, I just would like to thank everyone for their faithful giving to our church this past year. It has been an exciting year of growth, and I personally can't wait to see how the Lord is going to work through our church in the coming year. The Lord always does provide. However, we also need to be wise stewards of His bountiful blessings to our church. As always, I ask you to please continue to keep the elders and all those who work with them in making financial decisions in your prayers. Our desire is to be wise with the resources the Lord has provided to our church. Thank you so much for listening. If you have any questions regarding our 2018 results or our 2019 budget, please feel free to contact me.
So that was looking back at last year and some of the budget stuff, also coming up this year. And so with that, We just want to say a few words now about what 2019 is going to look like, some of the focus and emphasis. So we'll just break it down the same way: local work and then mission work. Let me just begin with local work in terms of Milwaukee. This year, I think one of the things we really need to focus on is really community impact and just being outward facing and reaching the people that we're there to reach. I mean, this is one of the major reasons we planted out and not just build a bigger building in Kenosha. We're actually up there as missionaries to reach a people in a different way. And so we want to focus on outward facing things, maybe find some ways to reach out to the people. One of the things that we've talked about is a church plant has to think differently than an established church. Everything in every aspect, all the way down to community groups. And so we need to, I think, focus on being nimble and flexible and thinking of creative ways to impact the community. I'm not saying we have to do crazy social work and things like that, but just in terms of mentality, be consistently outward facing. And so one of the things I'm going to try, and also I have to get myself to think this way too, is that truly we are missionaries up there. And so, finding ways to do the work of mission up there and encourage each other to keep doing that and keep that mentality and that identity and not be inward facing. The hardest part about planting out with a core group from an existing church is the temptation is to just take church and do it the same way in a different place. But instead, the mindset of every single person has to be outward. We're missionaries here. And so trying to create that culture, a culture of mission, a culture of sending, is kind of the focus. It's not a bad thing. I think our church, we planted out. So that that's indicative of some kind of mindset. So just continuing to do that and encouraging each other in that sense.
And for the Kenosha campus, it's in many ways supporting that and trying to not be an impediment to what we're trying to do up there, be a source of support. And at the same time, we're watching God backfill, if you will, all the people that left. And so we're facing some challenges of just we need more community groups, which means we need new community group leaders. And so the campus there is still functioning and all of it's developing. We're trying to maintain an eye on you and making certain that we're supporting you and at the same time taking care of the new people coming in. And all that, again, is a blessing. So
for sure.
No complaint there. We also have our preaching schedule. It's going to continue, but we're going to be doing some additional books. You're going to do Luke.
I'll be in Luke for a long, long time.
You're going to do Luke for, you're going to be kind of like what people were with me with Romans. They're going to say, well, what part of Luke was Matt in? And that's how they'll know where they came in. Well, I came in at chapter 10 and others will say 12 and whatnot. But I'm going to take on the book of Acts once I'm done with Genesis 1 through 11, which is the second book of Luke.
Yeah, that'll be fun.
I think that'll be fun for the people. Grayson, I asked him and he said he was willing. He's going to do the minor prophets. So that's going to be good for him because, that's going to be a challenge to his skills. So that's good for him to develop. But it's also going to be great for the people because, again, how many people have ever heard a sermon from Obadiah? Right. And yet it's scripture inspired by God and profitable. So they're going to hear it. And then we'll also have Bruce continuing through with James. So I think the people are going to be well fed.
Yeah.
And
such a broad spectrum, which is awesome. You're in Kenosha this year, seriously considering doing a chair campaign.
Yeah, we need to plan and figure out how to do it and the wisdom of it all. It's not something that's my strong point. And so I'm already reaching out to a specific person in our church who actually, he does that kind of stuff for a living, but we're looking at replacing the pews. We've talked about this in years past. and putting in good quality chairs that can be moved and rearranged, but also it will allow us to actually fit more people comfortably in our sanctuary. So
this is not mere aesthetics.
No, it has very little to do with that. It has a lot more to do with the use of the space, the layout ability, but also we can put, I think, 325 people in the room properly and safely and comfortably. Right now, we can only seat 225. So we really are pushing it. And if everyone was to show up on any given Sunday, we're actually pushing space issues. And that really limits it when new people come and they don't have a place to sit. Yeah. So we're looking at starting to do that, how to do it well. And once we have it figured out, we'll communicate it more fully to the church. How about you?
We'll do a little letter right there.
That.
We'll just have a picture of a chair. No.
Yeah.
Sorry, I thought
just sitting there.
I thought this one would be you because it's more.
Oh, I felt like I talked too much. That's okay. I'll do it.
Okay.
Along with that, we're the issue of the chair. We're also continuing to grow, which is, of course, why we're looking at the chair issue. And so we're growing both numerically, but also I see spiritually at the Kenosha campus. And part of what we are looking at is a future challenge. We sent you up there to plant, and we're hoping to send Grayson and Becca Gilbert out to plant. Now, I don't think it's going to happen this year. It'd be awesome if we could, but I don't expect that. But that's what we're moving toward. And so if people are wondering why Grayson is there and what's his role, it's we've been training him and developing him as he went to seminary, so that with the hope that we could plant another campus with them and continue to do what has been our lifelong or long-term vision for Missio of creating campuses that ultimately turn into their own individual church.
Yeah. Also this year, one thing that we've both been interested in is then this idea of what's known as church revitalization.
Yeah.
And so we've planted out, but church revitalization is a different animal. This is the idea of going into churches that are dying, but certainly a lot of churches that are just dead, and they're just a shell of what they used to be. There's no gospel presence. There's nothing. And so instead of trying to resource everything, take advantage of the existing infrastructure and potentially bring back there the gospel presence with a good preacher, bring mature people and families, and insert ourselves essentially not only in that church, but in the community that church exists in. And so now there's a wonderful gospel missional presence. And so that's just been something that's been exciting to us, just thinking about all the churches in the area.
Well, we know for a fact that there are several churches that are essentially, like you said, dead.
Yeah.
And their lifespan is going to be very short. They're right on the edge of completely going out of existence. But they have certain things that we don't have, and we have things that they don't have. So yeah, that's the idea of coming in and trying to revitalize it. If we can create avenues of communication, we might be able to walk into an existing infrastructure, like you said, of a church, but bring the people and start afresh, just like what we did with Missio Dei, when we created that replant. We're going to start again, and we're going to start fresh. And we can leave the baggage, we can leave the history behind, and we're going to start new. And so I don't know if it will work out, but it is something that we're looking at, and I'm cautiously optimistic about it.
Yeah.
And then we also have the celebration service.
Yeah, we got 3 planned this year. Yeah, we got one coming up on Easter. On Easter. On Easter, we have one, of course, Sunday after Labor Day, which is the fun one, that outdoor picnic.
With the pig.
At Smolensky Park. And then the third one we're hoping to do at Christmas, which will be on the 22nd of December. And so what's exciting is we've already booked a venue for those, which is the Fountain Hall.
Yeah, that's in Sturtevant.
Yeah.
Got a phenomenal deal, though. $300, and we get to use their facilities. It's more than sufficient to our needs. I'm excited because, again, we're going to be bringing both campuses together. We're going to be doing, again, baptisms. We're going to be bringing people into membership. The only difference between the Christmas and the Easter and the one at Smolensky Park is that we're not going to be having a meal there.
Right.
Those are special days. Usually family are getting together. So we're going to just come together, worship together as a church, be again, hopefully revitalized and refreshed as we see everybody there, and then go to our homes and our families and remember either the resurrection or the birth of our Lord.
And just kind of a by the way, what's exciting about the Easter one is it'll be 1 year since we've planted.
Oh, yeah.
So technically we planted on the 1st, but that was Easter Sunday.
I forgot that.
So that'll be exciting just to have everyone together, and it's just going to obviously look way different.
Yeah.
But it's exciting.
Well, and that's part of the goal I had behind those celebration services, though, was if we could have them on regular periods of time, we could be able to show the people. I mean, it's one thing that they know stuff's going on up in Milwaukee or in technically actually Oak Creek or down in Kenosha. They know it, but they're not seeing it. But then all of a sudden you get together and you've gone from 250 to 300, 300 to 325, it becomes a visual reference that God's at work. And I think it will be a great encouragement to them. Yeah. But we're also going to keep on doing the missions.
Yeah.
So we're still planning to work in Ethiopia. We're hoping, we're still waiting on the details, but we're hoping to get out there in March, you and I, and we'll finish the third module. Mm-hmm. But then you came into contact with somebody that opened up a whole new avenue in Ethiopia that we didn't anticipate.
Yeah, my translator. So the first Sunday we get there, we always go and preach at separate churches. And so the past 2 times I've had the same translator at my church, and he just the second time started asking me questions why we're there. And I told him, and he said, well, why don't you do what you're doing for all the denominations? And I'm like, we don't know anybody. And he then began to explain to me who he was. And he was a person who is in charge of all the education and curriculum for all of the churches, all the denominational churches in South Ethiopia, which is essentially 40,000 churches.
Yeah, I think that bears repeating. That's 40,000
yes,
churches.
1,000 churches.
Yeah, that's crazy.
Yeah, and so he is very eager to work with us. We've been in contact with him. We had some nice meals with him and got to know him and what he's doing a little bit. And so we're going to try and pursue that at this point and see what the Lord does. Yeah,
he's already told us that he's lined up a whole bunch of churches and pastors that are ready for training. So we just need to figure it out and again, financially how to do it and the logistics. But we also met Abera, who is a man who I was blessed to meet. I think you were too. He was trained at my seminary, the Master's Seminary, and he was the very first Ethiopian ever trained at the seminary. And he's come back there. He's teaching at a theological seminary, very lonely because they had to leave dear friends, but he's also very hopeful for his nation. And we're hoping to create some connections with him. And hopefully we've been looking for somebody in Ethiopia that can help teach our curriculum, because it's always better if you have somebody who is Ethiopian teaching it than going through us. And so we don't know what that will develop into, but we're hopeful. So God keeps sticking us back in Africa.
We're trying to get out, but
we're trying to go back to Greece, but God wants us in Africa. So we're also going to include Grayson though this year. So I think that'll be fun for him. I don't know if he's ever done anything like that, but I'll take him over and have him teach with me. So he'll have his first opportunity to experience the African culture, the African church. He'll probably preach, so he'll experience African worship, and all of that I think will be good. Along with that, we're going to be doing all of the other things that you and I talked about earlier, Lottie Moon, Action Packs, Voice of the Martyrs, and whatnot. Well, I think that sums up everything that we wanted to talk about and communicate to the people, but there is no way that we can end this without also acknowledging some incredibly helpful people who most people have no idea what they're doing behind the scenes, but without them, in many ways, our church would not function in the way that functions. I'll just start off with our secretary, Judy, who's not just a secretary. She's really the church office manager. She does everything that people can imagine and a whole lot more. She just makes certain everything gets paid, everything is done. She's been there for so long. She's my right arm. So trustworthy, so faithful, but Judy is a major cog in this wheel that makes things just work. And then attached to her, of course, is Karen, who just gave the financial report. Karen is a CPA, and she actually enjoys dealing with numbers, which is good because I hate it. But she's a blessing because the elders never have to wonder if we're doing something foolish. She always gives us wise counsel. She always directs us. And if there's a way that we can do it, she supports us. Money is a means to do ministry for her. And those type of people are hard to find. So utterly faithful. And
they're both very happy
Yeah.
to be doing this.
Yeah.
And they have to deal with two of us.
yeah, it was bad enough for Judy dealing with me, but now we added you. And so people should pray for her.
But we're very thankful for them, we would also say Mark and Lena. Mark and Lena have done an enormous amount, especially, early on with the plant. Mark outfitted us with all the sound, with all the, infrastructure stuff we needed just to do the Sunday morning deal and do it to where it's portable. And he, good qualities. And so he researched that, purchased all that, put it together, got something that worked for us. Lena has also been huge just with she was huge with the website, the content, kind of spearheading that thing. And then just the day-to-day upkeep of those things with the app. And I think you said anything you see or hear, they do.
Yeah, their fingerprints are on it.
Yeah.
Well, and she also took on the music ministry from David Hamilton. And anytime you take over something that was already in existence, that's hard because it's not yours. And now you're trying to make it yours. And I don't think there's anyone that can doubt that she's put her own personal touch on what we experience as a church every single Sunday. In Kenosha. For me, it's a blessing because I never worry about what kind of songs we're going to be singing. I know they're going to be theologically sound and worshipful, but they're also going to be done to a high quality. So
that's just it. Yeah,
I'm thankful.
They do stuff very well, and they're forward thinking and creatives in that sense.
Yeah, in fact, they're consistently making me do things I don't want to do, which is a good thing. I'm getting old and lazy. And then Kendall, she's right now probably turning red as she sees this, but Kendall is just one of those incredibly faithful people who take care of the nuts and bolts. She's excellent in planning and executing. If there's something that's supposed to be done at a certain time, she's all over that. And again, simple and faithful and kind about it. She just wants to serve.
And good at it. And I remember with the plant, she's putting together like PowerPoints and stuff for us to figure out how to do things and just create efficiency.
She knows how to break it down.
Yeah.
And I'm going to let you just wax eloquently about just the people up in your campus.
Yeah. There's some names. Obviously, we're going to miss people with this, but Pat, I want to thank. He's every Sunday super faithful to bring worship music for us. He prepares, the PowerPoint points, and his whole team, Noah, Travis' son, Isaiah, they've been huge and they're really faithful. They get there early, set up, tear down every single week. And again, I don't have to worry about theology and song choice. He's going to do it. There were a couple weeks where he was sick and it was clear he was stuffed up, but he was there and he, out of a sense of faithfulness and duty, did it. So
you know what I appreciate myself, and because that's not my campus, so I always feel a little bit like an interloper going there. But I'll show up, and Noah or Travis, whoever's doing the sound, always greets me with a smile, and they're always ready for me, and they're eager, and they want to make it work. Yeah. And it's like it's a small thing, but just. It's already early in the morning, and I'm thinking already about my sermon, and I get just a friendly smile.
Those
How are you
little
doing,
things,
Pastor
yeah.
Matt? Good to see you. And then we can chat a little bit, and a blessing.
Right. Obviously, Justin and Missy, their home was essentially ground zero for a long time. And they were all in. I mean, they were cheerleading this whole effort to launch and start a new campus and a new church up there, and still are. They're still opening their home weekly for a small group, and so a huge thanks to them. I don't know if we could have done it without having that solid, committed core right there. And Justin and Missy were obviously integral to that.
Yeah, them and their actual willingness to open their home.
Yeah.
Just that alone was critical, and still is.
Yeah, definitely. And then with that, everybody at the campus. I mean, we're not huge, and so everyone, it's all hands on deck every single Sunday. And part of that I really like. I think a day will come where at least I'll miss that, because it really creates a family feel right now. I know it's hard, especially in the cold months, to do that. We actually have to create, for people in Kenosha who don't know, an Excel sheet for every single ministry, because we have to figure out which names can go where to fill out which holes, because we're limited and everyone's doing so many things, but everyone's doing it with such a happy heart. I think and hope everybody's encouraged at this point. And so I want to just thank all them. Obviously, we couldn't do a church if there's no people. So
The Kenosha people, we have a building.
Yeah.
And so I don't think we can appreciate what happens every Sunday. You have all these people show up. They all know their place. They all grab the stuff. They get it all set up. Then they're not done. They have to then serve in all those different roles. And then when they're all done, they have to pack it all up and put it back away. And
then go to community group.
Yeah, and I never see a complaining heart.
No.
It's just, you're right. I mean, it's not. I wish we could thank everyone by name, but the whole church up there just needs to be thanked and prayed for. And then our last thing that we could give thanks for is just the elders, just having that support. And so elders do a difficult job and an unpleasant job, and also a job that's not understood by people, because unless you're having direct interaction with the elders, they're just behind the scenes supporting and guiding and leading. But they also encourage us. So we're thankful for that. And the church should be thankful for that. Yeah. So let's end it with just a few things that we could ask the church to be praying for as they look into this year.
Yeah, obviously a big thing on our heart and our mind is wisdom for what in the world to do with Ethiopia. It's a massive question mark right now.
It could spiral way out of control.
Yeah.
Yeah, we don't know what to do, and we don't know what God's doing with it. We're just trying to be faithful.
Yeah. So
we need a lot of wisdom.
Yeah. So I'll just leave it at that with that one. Something always on our hearts is development of future leaders, especially because we are trying to create a mission-minded people ascending culture. You have to have leaders in that.
Yeah.
If you don't, you're just existing and floating there. You'll just always be what you are. But until you can have people that can take this and then faithfully do something with it, you can't do those things. So development of future leaders.
Well, and specifically, we need more elders.
Yeah.
I mean, especially we're not looking at just staying exactly like we are. So in the future, we're just going to need more men who are qualified and are willing to serve in that. And so we need to develop that. But we're also looking at, we already have a functioning in a non-official capacity, but we're trying to look at implementing an official deaconess ministry. So we're at the point where I think the complexity of the church requires that we start to have that in a more formal way. So, I mean, that all by itself is a whole new thing that we have to figure out and how we can do it. And then you add to that, what do we do with Grayson? And that's not a burden. That's just, what do we do with him? We've invested time and energy and money into this man, and his heart's desire is to be staying with us and be used by us. And so what would God have us to do with that? So again, all of that is leadership. And if the people will think about all three of those, elders, the deacon ministry, Grayson, those are complex. Those are, you're messing with people's lives, and asking people to commit to things are huge. So not a little thing.
Yeah. And then just one final one, and this is just a broad one, but that God, of course, would grow us in both depth and breadth. Obviously, we want to keep growing in maturity. We want to see Christ formed in us as a church, as local entities. But then, obviously, that we'd have impact beyond us. So we want to grow. We don't just exist unto ourselves. We want to fulfill that mission, that Great Commission. And so, like, God would just add to our numbers, for His purposes, and then also that He would give us insight, and that comes through the preaching of the word and those kinds of things, but grow us in depth as we try and minister to the people.
Yeah. My old pastor actually had a saying that I always, in fact, my wife would remind me of it when I would become really discouraged in the early years. And she would just say, remember what John would say. He would say, you worry about the depth of your ministry and God will take care of the breadth. And
That's a good thing.
it's something that I was always reminded faithfully by my wife, and God has been faithful. And that's still our heart's desire. We want to put depth into the people, but we also want to see the breadth there as God is pleased. So We're not going to be doing it by hook or by crook. We're not going to be doing it by fancy ideas. We want to do it because the gospel's going out and people's hearts are changed and people are growing in the word. So, that pray, people, for these things.
If I would just say one last thing about prayer, and it's a testimony to it. We saw this with the planting of the campus, and that was, we all know we need to be praying, and it's hard to mobilize that. Being so spread now with 2 campuses, it's hard to get us all on the same page to be praying for one particular thing. But it got a little sketchy there at the end because we had that launch date of April 1st, and we didn't have a location. And we had everything else in place, but we couldn't do anything because everything's built on a location, timing, everything. And so finally we just said, why don't we just pray about this? And so we sent it out via the small groups, and we said, hey, everyone as a church, let's pray for a particular location. And literally God gave us the original place that I was looking at, which was that theater right off the interstate, the exit, and it would allow us to do the dual preaching where we can preach at both campuses because it's far enough away where we need a separate campus, but close enough to where we can do what we're doing now. And so with that, we do want to encourage the church to be praying toward that end together. I think that's the thing that God blesses.
Absolutely. Yeah. And so that's our video. And I hope that you were encouraged by it. I hope that it gave you the information that you need to know how to pray for a church. Also, that you might be able to give thanks to God because 2018 was a crazy year, and yet so many good things. And 2019 looks to be just as exciting and just as challenging. So we would say if you have a question, obviously you can't ask us right here, but you can find any one of us and you can ask us any question you need, and we will seek to answer it to the best of our ability. So thank you for watching.